Aloha and welcome for joining us. We are The Art of Life here on ThinkTech Hawaii. My name is Willow Chang and we're enjoying this wonderful Aloha Friday with my esteemed guest. This show is entitled Don Brown, Renaissance Man. And it sounds like I'm being facetious, but if you stay tuned, my friends, you're going to see exactly why he is so befitting of that title. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So wonderful to have you. So here we are on a wonderful Aloha Friday. We're deep in the heart of downtown in Pioneer Plaza. I have to let you guys know where that is, right? So we're here in the basement, room 30. This is where all the magic happens. And every Friday, interview various people around town who make Hawaii a dynamic place. And you have certainly contributed continuously in making Hawaii a very unique place. And I want our readers, I always say readers, but they're actually our viewers. I'd like our viewers to know a little bit about Don Brown, right? So I remember you did programming at Honolulu Academy of Art. I know they have a new name, it's Honolulu Museum of Art. I'm going to probably call it the Academy until I croak because it was that for so long. And I just remember the programming was just exceptional, exceptional. And I think people need to understand that in this day of easy accessibility via technology to information and films and TV and shows, and there's webcasts like this, there was a time not that long ago when these things were not as accessible, and you were so instrumental in bringing these fantastic movies, not just your artsy films, but documentaries, really interesting exposés. Stuff. Yeah, tell me a little bit about what got you into film.
Well, actually, I studied film in Los Angeles. I was at the American Film Institute right out of college.
Okay.
A little bit too young to be there because most of the people were in their late 20s and 30s, and I was a fresh-faced 22-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
But I enjoyed it. I actually started working in the industry right after the AFI. I went to Universal Studios and worked for a producer named Rob Cohen, who's now a director, and did XXX and Fast and Furious and a lot of those movies.
Oh my gosh.
Our tastes are not the same. But it was fun. It was was my first job, and I was there at Motown. He was the head of Motown Productions, not the music department, but the film.
Right.
So I worked on The
Wiz.
The
Wiz. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was on
He's
The Wiz.
on that. I love it. Fantastic.
And,
Lady Sings the Blues, possibly, was that?
That was before I came on. That was in 75. I came in 76.
Okay.
And was there till 78 until The Wiz came out and bombed, unfortunately.
It's ready for a revisitation, not a remake, but I think people need to really look at it. It was ahead of its time, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And maybe people weren't used to...
A little on the static side, if you ask me. But, it's very worthy production. I saw it from the beginning to the very end. So it was fascinating.
That is
Met
awesome.
Michael Jackson, who usually sat in the corner. But anyway, and I was there for 2 years, and then when the contract with Motown expired as a result of The Wiz not doing that well with Universal, I went over to PBS, KCET in Los Angeles, and worked with several people, but the big project that we were working on was Cosmos.
Oh my gosh, Carl Sagan. I
billions
love that show.
And billions, Carl.
Yes. Who isn't necessarily a fan of the metaphysical as I am, but I always think that the sacred and the science can meet.
Right.
But what an amazing show that was.
Oh,
I mean,
it
opened so many minds to the possibilities of the universe.
We knew it was something special when we were working on it. And they were shooting all over the world, and I was mainly in an office, doing, just looking at rushes and things like that. But Carl was fascinating. He had the office right across from me.
Gone too soon, for sure.
So I was there for 2 years, and we did several projects. And then I went from PBS to Paramount Television.
Dun, dun, dun. That's 20th Century Fox. Paramount is with the stars over the mountain.
Over the mountain. That looks exactly like the mountain going up to the North Shore. If you look.
Does.
Just that peak.
Great. And tell us about the Paramount experiment.
Paramount was great. I did get my midlife crisis there.
I think we're entitled to at least a few midlife crises now that the life expectancy has expanded.
Yes. Well, I had mine at 29. So.
Okay.
And then I realized, there was most of it was great. Some of it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
And you get the the real lowdown on why things are made, and it was television, so it wasn't as exciting as being on the movie side. But I had to watch every television show that was on the air, and I don't watch it now.
You were like a Nielsen's with her little booklet.
Right. Once you've seen sausage being made, you don't want to see it again.
No. You know, if you may interrupt, you mentioned a few things, and we can come back to the Vita because it's all super fascinating. But some of the things you've mentioned, I think, are very important, timely matters. One is the emphasis that might have shifted. I mean, you obviously don't have a business to lose money, but it seems like now, when you have Iron Man 7 or 15 or whatever we're on, X-Men 35, that the focus has shifted from great storytelling and artistic endeavors and creative chances that are taken to just profitability. I mean, something I think is strange is, why does the regular guy need to know how much money a movie made last weekend? How does this change our life?
It has changed. It's changed quite a bit, and people have gotten more savvy about the marketing aspects of filmmaking, which I think has changed the business somewhat. And also, one of the highlights of my being at AFI was that we were allowed to do an interview with someone that you admired in the industry for the library, and then you would transcribe it and leave it. And mine
was American Film Institute for people who don't know.
In LA. And so my choice was Steven Spielberg. And he was very gracious. I spent a couple of hours with him at Universal talking about his projects. And
1941.
He had just actually come off of Jaws.
Okay.
And shooting it. It hadn't come out yet, but he was editing it, and he talked about all the problems and everything. But the interesting thing about it was that was the beginning of the shift in the area with the blockbusters that came out during the summer, and Jaws was the prototypical film.
This was probably released right before Memorial Day weekend.
77, I think it was. It was right in the summer blockbuster tentpole thing. So anyway, that changed the industry. And of course, Lucas was part of that change, and there was a whole coterie of young directors at that time who wanted to follow Spielberg's example because he made a ton of money.
You need to have action figures and tie-ins with the fast food industry.
So that's why those franchises, kind of took over, and now, of course, it's the industry standard to do that. So anyway, that was a big change because the 70s was also that period when you had the auteurs. You had people like Scorsese that were doing smaller films,
Taxi Driver,
and great films, and but that all changed. And so anyway, that's where we are now.
Which you just gave me a nice segue, because I was thinking about this today. My best idea is when I shave my legs. It's true. Analyze that, Mr. Brown, psych major. I was thinking about Hugo. I don't know why. I mean, this was a wonderful gem of a film about 2 years ago. And I started thinking in my mind of all of the different films that Martin Scorsese has done. Amazing American filmmaker, amazing storyteller. Hugo was such a gem. And it was the first movie that convinced me that 3D was actually a worthy pursuit.
Yes.
And yet it seemed like it just kind of tanked at the box office, and I'm wondering, how is it that some directors seem to be able to make that foray into 3D or blockbuster, and it's a smooth transition, and then you have a beautiful, well-crafted film like Hugo, and people just go, meh, and they don't seem to get it, and that had a film within a film.
Yeah, it's some of the selling points. Hugo, I thought, was an interesting film that failed, I think, because it was a little bit too, it had too many layers for it, I think, a lot of people. And I admired it a lot, but I could see why it's not an easy sell.
Do you think that television now, which has moved into layered storytelling like Mad Men or Breaking Bad or Sopranos, do you think that that medium benefits by having serialized episodical type of things where people can then digest it? Do you think people maybe have lost the ability to take a multi-layered approach to something like Hugo?
That's getting back to it. It's also segmenting the audience so that, for example, if you have Breaking Bad, it's on cable, you select to get that. It's not just thrown out into the the wide marketplace.
Right.
And now you have Netflix coming up with smaller stories, House of Cards and things like that, that also have the same sort of kind of selected audience. And the audience, you don't have to cater to commercial aspect on Netflix because people subscribe to it and they can see it all in one block if they want. So everything's changing.
In addition to the experience of physically going to movie theater, so it's a confession, and anybody who knows me knows I feel this way. I really lamentation, the demise of the movie palace. I mean, I honestly think of theaters as being temples or palaces to a cinematic experience, a cultural experience, an emotive experience, and then one by one they've closed down, and you always hear the argument, oh, but we have a 16 multiplex, insert finger here. But what do you think has been gained and what has been lost by having these small, beautiful movie houses close?
One thing I learned about 10 years ago, some people might remember that we had something called the Art House at Restaurant Row, which is now a medical facility, I think, over at the Waterfront Plaza. But it was a 9-plex, and the interesting thing about that experience is, having been at the Academy before as the film curator there, is that movie houses make their money on popcorn.
Yes.
Literally.
The concessions. That's why it's like $10 for popcorn.
And I had no inkling. I mean, I had a very artistic, vision of an art house, but not realizing that the people that go to the art houses don't eat popcorn, generally.
Yeah.
Generally, some people do. But they go to the restaurants. They go to the restaurants, and the restaurants were happy. It was Restaurant Row. There were like 10 restaurants, and they were all full. And
or sometimes they sneak in their food.
And then they go to the movie. But every theater survives on its concessions because that's the most markup, and they don't really survive on the way that the industry works is that the studio provides the film to the theater. The theater takes half the profit, and other half goes back to the company.
So this must be why we have a 16 multiplex and 5 theaters showing. I'm sorry, Iron Man. I love Robert Downey Jr. But I mean, to me, I can't understand. It's like you have 16 theaters, and 5 of them are showing Iron Man, and then there's one for IMAX, and then there's one that's 3D. So the reality is 7 of 16 theaters are showing Iron Man.
They diversify their losses in that case. I mean, if you have a couple of films like like Iron Man, let's say, that do really well, then you can subsidize the other films in your 16-plex that just do okay. So that's the way. And in a movie palace, you have one film. If it doesn't do well, then
I'll tell you, I live right near Cinerama Theater, which I just love.
Oh, yeah.
And working girl, we're going back in the annals of history here. I think it was 1989.
I think it was early 90s.
Yeah. And my goodness, they showed that movie for, I think, 7 months.
Really?
Because I was so frustrated. I wanted them to turn the film around because I wanted to see something different. And
they'll hold on to it forever if it's making money.
I'm thinking Harrison Ford must have made a lot of money from that, and not just from Star Wars or Indiana Jones. I thought, come on, how many people haven't seen Working Girl? It's been here for 7 months. So, something that they had that was fascinating as well is they tried a series of films. They had restored films. I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey at Cinerama. I got to see Wizard of Oz, which I'm obsessed with that film, at Cinerama. I also saw Sam Peckinpah, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Peckinpah? No,
wait.
Sergio Leone.
Sergio Leone.
Yeah.
Anyways, you just have to see it on a big screen.
Wow,
and that was so fabulous. There was this little tiny window where they tried this. I think they were just trying to see what was viable and what would work out. And then they closed the place and they turned it into an automotive store.
Yeah.
Thank you. Consolidated. I'm probably on your blacklist, but
that's the thing that you learn when you're actually in the trenches. It's all a business. They make the reason that they make certain things that has nothing to do with art, has to do with contracts. They owe a picture to someone, or they have an actress that they have what they call a pay or play. you have to pay them whether they do a movie or not, so they have them do a movie, and
Wow.
all this and other stuff that is behind the scenes, and then it kind of disillusions you after a
just a
while.
skosh.
Yeah. But I still love movies. I mean, I just don't want to be in the trenches.
You just want to be a regular Joe.
I want
Nice
to
try.
show films. That's
Not
what I
gonna
love.
happen.
I love-
Nothing regular about you.
I love being in the back of the theater and watching people's reaction to a film that I think is really good.
Yeah.
And that's what the thrill is for me.
Now, we don't have the option to see your reaction. However, you can drop us a line at Facebook, or you can go to our website at ThinkTechHawaii.com. We always encourage your thoughts, opinions, rants or raves, preferably a rave, but we'll listen to your rant. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back asking Don Brown a few more questions about storytelling, about film, and what he thinks of the scene here in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii. Don't go away.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel, founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. We are a digital media nonprofit that covers things that matter to tech, energy, diversification, globalism, and progress for our state, the state of Hawaii. We broadcast on community television and on Oceanic Cable Channel 16. We also stream our shows and interviews live on the internet as both radio and video, and of course we post them here on YouTube. We collaborate with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association to present monthly luncheon programs on subjects of interest to the business community. And we write for the Honolulu Star Advertiser. ThinkTech works hard to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check out our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and come to our YouTube channel, ThinkTech Hawaii. We hope you support our mission and that you like our work. I'm Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang, and here we discover and question. Some might feel they're interrogated, but I promise I try to be kind in these matters. Some of the wonderful people who make Hawaii a very unique, diverse, and interesting place. And of course, Don Brown, you fit the bill for all three.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. If you didn't join us a little earlier, we were discussing your amazing and illustrious career in the world of film and television production and all those things, also as a curator of selecting films and creating unique programs for the Honolulu Academy of Arts and also for the Art House at Restaurant Row. Keep us up to speed. What happened after that?
Well, I got to Hawaii in '88. Actually, I was writing for a magazine in San Francisco at the time, and they sent me here to do Pacific Stories, taking a cue from the cover of Newsweek. The editor asked the staff, anybody want to go to Hawaii for a year? And my hand went up so fast. So I got here on a contract for a year and explored all the islands, and I was coming up with stories and working for a data firm that would or a market research firm that would give me raw data, and then from that I would generate stories. So I actually had such a great time. I started doing all kinds of things and discovering people. One of the things I discovered here is that there wasn't a lot of alternative film.
Yeah.
I mean, having been in San Francisco before that and lived on the East Coast, I went to school in Boston, so I was right in the middle of that culture scene. And then in LA, and then realizing there's a lot of stuff that doesn't ever come here.
You know, it's true. And your ability to bring films, there's someone I got to give a shout out to him. I'd have him sitting here in the chair if he were still here on Earth, but I don't know if you remember Gerard Chapuis. And he did the
Oh, I've heard about that. I never met him.
Oh my goodness!
At UH.
At UH.
Yes,
So he used to show all of these like Tampopo and Pink Flamingos and Pink Floyd The Wall, and of course he showed Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I went to religiously every weekend for 3 years in my high school year.
He used to do it in Hamilton, right?
He did in Hamilton. He also had the Physical Science Auditorium,
Huh.
and would bring in obscure, not obscure, but let's say cult classics.
Yeah.
So that's on the other side of the spectrum.
Oh, that's great.
But it was always nice to have this rounding out of the films that you would bring in, whatever, Babette's Feast or all of those.
And there's so much
things.
stuff. In college, in fact, I was the head of a film society for 3 years, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And the funny thing is, I mean, there were many film societies on campus, but ours was unique in that I would choose double features. And
2 for 1?
2 for 1, and then, of course, it would finish around 1 o'clock at night or something, but it was Friday, Saturday. And the funny thing is, the most popular double feature I ever showed was King Kong and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Ew, you have 2 fabulous blondes in the mix there. Fay Wray and Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
You can't go wrong. So when you have something like a double feature, do you think of it like a wine pairing? Do you try to have things that are complementary? Do you like things that are contrasting? Do you like something that's
Something like that,
historical?
like the one that I just mentioned was of course contrast. But in other cases, it would be 2 sides of, let's say, a director. Howard Hawks would be Only Angels Have Wings, which is like a Cary Grant adventure set in South America with mail carriers. And then compare that with Bringing a Baby, which was done the year before, complete opposite, and comedy and playing a different character. So things like that.
Do you think that there's a creative pitfall that if you're known for something, if you establish an identity or a voice or a style, and then naturally I would think artists and people evolve, hopefully you're evolving, that people are maybe not ready to embrace that evolution or to embrace that change? Do you see that in the film selections where, let's say you've done a lot of gangster films and then you want to switch and you want to do something like a historical drama or a picture drama
like being
film?
typecast?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the people involved, you mean?
Yeah,
Or
maybe the directors even themselves.
I think, I'm one of those people that thinks that your personality comes out no matter what you do. And I think in terms of, if you're really good and have a signature, it'll come out in either your love of character or story or how you evolve, a particular theme. I think my personal favorite was Hitchcock, and he did so many different films and in so many different countries and genres and things, but he always had that, I told you before I was a psych major,
Yeah.
and it was the way that he shot the film that I always thought was really brilliant. And
Yeah, it's the terror of the mind as opposed to the terror of the body.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So things like that.
Super.
But doubling back to Hawaii.
I wanted to ask you something about the concept of thematic festivals. Because that's something that's clearly popular, and I think it's human nature to want to group things and categorize. But when we have something like, say, this is a Filipino-American film festival, or this is an Asian film festival, or these are Latino voices, at what point is it maybe detrimental? Like, do you think we'll ever be able to collectively reach a point where we can say a film and storytelling holds its own weight by its own merit, as opposed to having to be subjugated into a label, like female filmmakers, African American filmmakers? Or do you think that that's beneficial, like Anime Film Festival? I mean, it's kind of a multi-purpose question.
When I was doing the program, it's funny you should mention that, because when I was doing programming at the Academy, one of the things that we would have is umbrellas, themes, and the advantage of that is that for people that were interested in anything that had to do with that theme, art, film, I would do dance films, for example. I would do music, all different types of music. And then within that, try to be creative in how varied you can be.
And you had a great series at Coppola, I remember.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Because of the tango film, you had the Oriental belly dance films. Yeah, that was great.
And we're back there now.
Yeah.
I'm now doing films again at the Design Center.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about that. If you're unfamiliar, the Design Center is on Kapiolani Boulevard, and it's orange. You can't miss it.
Full block, you can't miss it.
It's completely orange, and it's very space age, and it's very cutting edge and fashion forward.
And on the second floor, they have a nice theater, holds about 200 actually in capacity. And on one side is the Stage restaurant, the other is the wine bar, the Amuse wine bar, and every Monday we are doing films there now.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
really
Well, how
fun.
fortuitous that you're here. Super.
In fact, next Monday we're doing a film on adoption. We're working with the Adoption Circle of Hawaii, and we usually have people that talk afterwards. So we're going to be doing a film called A Girl Like Her, which is a woman that got pregnant in the 50s, and her experience and how it compares with what's happening now.
That's something.
And the whole approach.
You know, I really appreciate that you find ways of interconnecting the ideas. I think some people think that the act of going or seeing a film, it's the beginning and the end, but you're always taking it one step further, continuing that dialogue, continuing that conversation.
Helping to have people talk afterwards.
Yeah, to make
really
a connection, which is really wonderful.
thank you.
I wish more people did that.
Well, it's something that I think is necessary here in Hawaii, because there are, it's much better than it used to be when I was here at first in '88, but there are always, if you live in a place like Berkeley, or if you live in a large metropolitan area, there's always interesting things that are going on, and here it's narrower. I mean, it's still pretty nascent as far as real community-oriented things like that.
You will end up seeing some of the same people again and again. My adjective used to be Coffee Manoa. When the wonderful Coffee Manoa existed, we miss you, Kathy Maddox. And I mean, you would see the same people at Coffee Manoa, the same people at the Hawaii International Film Festival, the same people at Doris Duke, some of those same people at Gerard's Films at UH, some of those people in drum circles, some of those people at Unity Church. I mean, after a while, it is a small group. I do think that there's been maybe a more influx of ideas and stirring of the pot, but it's essential to build the community.
Exactly. That's one of the things that is really a motivator for me. And the greatest compliment someone ever gave me was when we were doing the art house at Restaurant Row. They didn't know what was playing. There were 9 theaters, but people would just come and say, I didn't know what was playing, but I just wanted to see who was here.
You know what? That sounds something very much like what my late father would say.
Oh, really?
And he would just spend the whole day, because he knew that there would always be something of quality. And it's so cute because in the Chang household, if they asked my dad, he was also a fellow Crimson, they would say, what was the film about? And his standard stock answer was, it's human interest. Which, I mean, it kind of meant everything and nothing. I mean, for me, I understood his code word, what that would mean. But to a lot of people, that was very confounding. Like, human interest, what does that mean? It's like, well, that is the meaning. It's human interest. It's
I wish I'd met him.
I bet you probably did. I'll have to show you a picture. So coming back to this idea of human interest and stories, because the heart of every great film really is a great story. People think it's the actors and the lighting, the cinematography, the costumes. Those are beautiful things. But if you don't have a decent story, the film doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't take you anyplace emotionally or physically or psychologically. You are continuing this understanding of the importance of stories, and you have something new that you've launched. Tell us about
Great segue.
Yeah.
We have something called Tell Me a Story. I don't know if you can see that, but we're doing it right now at Coexist, which is a nice little studio down in Kaka'ako.
Yeah, so it's right across the old Comp USA. I just went to an art show with Robert Rees about 2 weeks ago, and I was lost, and they said, go across the old Comp USA, and there it is, voila.
It's a nice little space. It was a former garage or something, but there's a nice foment of real creative people that are doing all kinds of things in that area, that whole our Kaka'ako block. So at any rate, we are doing this just for the month of November. Next weekend on the 17th, you are going to be telling a story.
Never heard of her. Who? Where do they get these freaks? Pushing earplugs in her ears.
But if you're familiar with The Moth, the radio album.
I was just going to ask you if it was like The Moth.
Yeah, it was. That was the inspiration because we wanted to have something similar here, and there's such great stories here in Hawaii. And
so for those of you who aren't familiar with The Moth, it might be picked up by your Hawaii Public Radio. We have it, and you can listen to them on the internet. It's on Saturdays.
Saturdays at 2.
There are various stories from people who are not necessarily professional storytellers.
No, but they're all true. They swear.
They're all true. They have something to say. And it's just amazing how evocative and how powerful the voice is.
I've been listening to it for almost a year now. And it's interesting because some are very funny, and then some will just break your heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's something very powerful about the voice, because it's almost like truth serum. You
Right.
can't, I mean, unless you're really skilled and your motive is to be deceptive, most people, when they're telling something that's very emotional, you hear it come across. You do not need a visual.
Right.
You can just be sitting in your car parked wherever you are, which is often the case. I'm driving, I get to my destination, and now I've spent 40 minutes just sitting in my car listening to the radio. But that's how compelling
Yeah.
the stories are.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating that we're going to have this forum where people can share
Yeah,
stories.
we just did the first one last weekend, and we had 7 storytellers, and all different as night and day. The winner, actually, we do like an audience appreciation afterwards, and we give a gift certificate for certificate for one of the shops around that area.
That's great.
And the winner was Nanette Napoleon, who is Nabby Napoleon's daughter, old Beach Boy for people that know the Beach Boy scene. And she told a great story about diving for coins on boat day. She was the only girl,
Wow.
8 years old, and almost drowned trying to grab a very heavy 50-cent coin that went straight to the bottom. And rescued by her father by her pigtails.
That's fantastic.
Great story.
That's fantastic.
So things like that. And I mean, it's that's great fun, and we're doing it just as an experiment, see if it works, and then perhaps expand. Once that area gets torn down in another location. So we'll see.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm always interested in how different community groups can come together and just have fun in that way.
I'm curious, since our show is called ThinkTech Hawaii, what do you think is the difference between hearing a story, something that might even be considered kind of lo-fi or low-tech, because people have been telling stories for generations, versus, say, the advent of film, which is such a beautiful 20th century
Right.
medium?
Well, it's interesting. I've been doing a show for about 10 years called Hawaii's Real Stories about filmmaking, and people on OC16 certainly know it. And the difference, I think, is that let me go with the connection first, because a lot of times people, especially younger people, know all the technical tricks and use them, a lot to make film. But what's lacking is they don't know yet how to tell a good story. So, and that's the basic.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I decided to try this, just to get people used to the elements of storytelling and what makes a good story, and just think about the character, what actually happens, the structure, the 3-part structure of the beginning, middle, end, and then to help it might help them shape their thoughts on how to put together a story. Because I certainly see it a lot with in film schools where kids, as I say, have all the technical skills down pat, but not the technique of actually pulling a plot together or making you care about a character.
That's true, and I would say it's not limited to probably the realm of film for students. I mean, I think a lot of times people get very absorbed with the technical aspect, but then it's more like an exercise as
Right.
opposed to an art form. So
Yeah.
trying to find how can you bridge those two together.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
We're going to take a very short break, but we're going to be back, and I have a few more questions for you. So this is The Art of Life. My guest is Mr. Don Brown. I'm Willow Chang Alion. Please stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
This is me adjusting the earpiece. Sometimes we have those technical difficulties, but we're keeping it live, we're keeping it real. Here we are at ThinkTech Hawaii. Again, this is The Art of Life. My name is Willow Chang, and if you are just joining us, well, goodness gracious, you missed out on a good interview. Watch it on YouTube. We've got it there. We also have it on Spreaker if you're more accustomed to listening as opposed to watching. We have Mr. Don Brown, and we've titled the show Renaissance Man, and you are going to know why. So we have this new program called Tell Me a Story.
Tell Me a Story, and every week in November at the Coexist Studio.
At the Coexist Studio. In addition to this, because I know you always got a few things up your sleeve. So you have films at the Honolulu Design Center on
Yes,
Mondays. We have Coexist, Tell Me a Story on Sundays. That's a heady little weekend you've got there. I'm sure Tuesday you just need like an ice pack and a martini or something.
I'm out for the rest of the week.
We've got a brand new year upon us. Anything that you feel willing to share? Some people don't like to talk about their plans, but can we expect to keep our eyes and ears peeled for something in 2014?
Well, let's see. What I'm working on. As I say, we're in our 10th year on the air on Hawaii's Real Stories, and that has been keeping me busy during the rest of the week.
Right.
But what I'd like to do is to possibly integrate Tell Me a Story with a TV presence, have it make some kind of an interactive. It would be fun to do something interactive, so I'm working on that. And not ready to share all the technical aspects of it. Actually, we're trying to work out the bugs.
I hear you. Little DDT couldn't hurt.
That could be fun. Something new and innovative.
I'm curious. You've hung up your hat in a lot of different locales. You've been exposed to many different communities. The concept and the idea of regional differences or identity, how do you see that plays into Hawaii? Clearly we've got like local things, but since 1988, between then and 2013, we also have exposure to a lot of different ideas and approaches.
Exactly.
How do you feel that the regional dialect or flavors have changed in a place like Honolulu?
Well, the internet has changed everything, and that is undeniable in the fact that when I first got here, it felt a little isolated, quite honestly, and
provincial.
A little provincial. And when I first started, programming films at the Academy in '96, in fact, the funny thing is, a lot of the distributors were very loath to send their film cans. We had to have these huge film cans at the time, no digital, to Hawaii, and they thought, literally, they were afraid there was going to be sand that came back in the can.
Some of my favorite films I saw at the Academy, I'm absolutely positive you brought the beautiful documentary on flamenco.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Sora's, I think that was,
yes,
and Lachodrome,
yes.
Safe Journey, about the Roma and the Gypsy. Because
beautiful.
it was such an experience. I mean,
Wow.
it really was. It was like a homecoming because you would go and you would see a lot of your familiar faces and friends, and people would linger in the lobby and they would talk about the film, and it was, you really created community with that.
Thank you.
I'm a little wistful for it. It's not the same as going to Redbox.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen how old-fashioned I am. I know most people have Netflix. My mother has Netflix, and I can't be bothered. It's too confusing for me. But you go to Redbox, and you're kind of desperate, and you're scrolling through, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, what's the least offensive film that I can rent for 99 cents?
Well, now it's so easy just to go to Netflix and order anything that you can. At the time, in '96, as I recall, I would have to just call the distributors and find out what was available because it wasn't on the internet.
Right.
And then I would have to fax each one to see how much it was and if we could afford it and all that kind of stuff. And now, or to call them, and now it's just so easy. I mean, I literally can go on the internet and type in dance film. 2013, and then all these things will come up, and then I can scroll through and I can watch it on YouTube and see it.
It's kind of like when you're a kid. It's like, I wish I had a magic genie, and it's almost like that. I want to learn about the life cycle of the cicada.
So much easier now.
There it is. It's fascinating. So I'm a big fan of the single house or the small movie theater. That's a rave. A rant that I have, I'm going to show what a curmudgeon I am, but when they started showing commercials preceding the films. Oh my goodness, my eyes, I'm not an eye roller, but
Yeah.
I couldn't roll my eyes back
Yeah.
far enough in the socket.
I know exactly.
And this has just become acceptable. There was a small little movement of people I remember locally who were trying to like fight the power. It's like holding back a tsunami. What do you think? Do you think it's just the way of the times? It's just profitability?
We did that at the art house when we first introduced commercials. There was a huge backlash. Huge backlash.
Lit torches.
Yeah, I know.
Let the people decide.
Hide the pitchfork. But yeah, and I could see why it was a business decision. You
Yeah.
know, it was the company that said we need more revenue coming in, and it's a revenue thing. It's all money.
How about when you go into we'll call it a commercial theater for lack of a better term, and they say, "And that was One Direction coming up next." Film for
Right.
Does that just drive you bananas,
It
or
does.
do you just like tune it out, or do you just try to avoid it and you go right for the previews?
I usually tune it out. I take the editorial page and
Okay,
read.
there you go. Previews. So this is another thing in our household. Like the previews were saint to saint, because I think I didn't say that correct, but you know what I'm trying to say. It was like you had to see the previews. Like some people can take it or leave it. They're like, dude, we got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get popcorn. And
Right,
other
right.
people are like, no, I need to see the
If the previews are
previews.
good, I welcome them. I mean, you can see them on YouTube now.
Yeah,
So
this is true.
it's not a big deal. But usually it's just one car crash after another.
Well,
That's what gives me a headache.
Some of these previews pretty much reveal every highlight, every
Yeah.
gag reel, and almost the whole story condensed into about 90
Right,
seconds, which I
exactly.
just think, why am I going to pay $12.50 or whatever to see the film when I kind of saw
They give you every joke in the thing and the payoff.
Yeah.
The one thing that was interesting when we first started the art house, though, there were some people that were not used to subtitles. You know, a lot of the films were foreign films, or things that were subtitled, and I remember there was the first week, one man came storming out of the theater and saying, "You didn't tell me I had to read on it."
How dare you, Don Brown?
Oh, it was so funny. And yeah, it's so second nature to me. But some people just don't like to read in the theater. And the people that were setting up the reels, the people in the booth,
Yeah.
weren't used to subtitles. So they would set up the movie and leave.
Oh, they don't focus the
And
film.
then either
Oh.
the subtitles are under the frame,
Right.
or I mean, they have to wait for somebody to speak to leave the booth, and that took a big.
I'm going to have a
lift.
John McLaughlin moment. John Brown, question number 1. Subtitles, yellow or white? Which
I like
do
the
you
yellow
prefer?
ones.
Okay, he likes the other one. I just saw Ip Man, the final fight.
yeah.
I also do really interesting to me film reviews if you want to go and see them on Facebook. But that being said, I really like the subtitles because when the dialogue is excellent, with these little cones of wisdom,
Right.
you have twice as many chances to actually
Right.
have that absorb into your think tank here, as opposed to just bloop, going
Yep.
by really quickly. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
As long as they're good subtitles.
As long as they're good.
Yeah.
Anything that you would recommend as a storyteller, as a director, as an event producer, things that you think are essential to someone's education, that you would say, these are 3 or 5 things that everyone should indulge in. We know that you've professed your love for Alfred Hitchcock films.
Yeah. They're the old. A lot of the classics are now available everywhere. So I
Love
would.
Turner.
Yeah.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
go to the library.
Yeah.
They're in the library. I was amazed. I went to one library out in near Oceanic recently, in what's the town? What's the community out there? Mililani.
Yes.
Of
The
course.
All-American Town.
Yeah, and it was amazing. They have such a variety, and I hadn't been in a library to get a DVD in a while, but I just happened to be there, and I looked through the thing. I spent an hour looking through documentaries and old classics and things that you can't get usually on except Turner.
Yes,
Turner
yeah.
Classic. But it was amazing, and they're $1. So
You can't go wrong.
so I would do that. I would go through and pick out some really old 30s, 40s, 50s films that are really.
Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah, well, and
They had faces. They had faces back then.
great writers, and also.
Absolutely. You know, I think if people do their research and they find out, people are very apt to say, oh, I can't do this because I don't have a connection and I didn't have these things and I couldn't go to USC. If you actually look into the background of a lot of our auteurs, our filmmakers, whether it's Martin Scorsese or even someone like Quentin Tarantino, at the heart of everyone, even though their vision is different, is someone who absolutely loves film and they love storytelling and they have spent countless hours watching film. So it leads me to believe that Renaissance people are not born, they are created, and you are a great example of that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, small children and dogs, whoever's watching our show, please support local culture. We've got some great events happening, courtesy of Mr. Don Brown. We've got Sundays for the month of November. Tell Me a Story. That's at the Coexist Studio.
Yes.
331 Kiawe Street.
Right.
Oh, shame on me. I said South Street. Disregard what I said. It was wrong. So hopefully you can see this without the glare. And then also Monday evenings.
This is a Monday Movie Cafe.
Super. What film do you have coming up this Monday? Tempt us.
On Monday the 18th, we're not doing anything for Veterans Day.
Okay.
But A Girl Like Her, which is a film on adoption. And we have the Adoption Circle of Hawaii that's going to be doing question and answer afterwards.
That is so excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And all of the
seeing
things
you.
that you share with us here in Hawaii, making it very unique. And just to help us prevent what I say cultural erosion, you know. So I'm so glad that you didn't go back after 1 year.
Yeah,
you know?
could have, but I love Hawaii.
That was a very long year. Well, thank you so much, Don Brown. My name is Willow Chang Elion. This is The Art of Life, and life is full of so much art. So have a wonderful, safe weekend, and we will see you next Friday. And we have a musical guest who's going to be sharing with us his fantastic project that's up and coming. So you don't want to miss that. Aloha.